Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to make bone broth, why you would want to make bone broth in a really easy way, and then I'm also going to show how you can store it super easily in your freezer so that it is always available and ready to use in a way that's going to be just very simple and accessible for you to actually incorporate this into your, daily diet or into your daily cooking. If you guys are new around here, welcome. My name is Becca. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm also a mom of 3. I'm joined by Bowie here, my youngest, who's eating some strawberries. If you can see him in the background. And I am all about cooking whole, real foods, mostly from scratch, most of the time at home. So I'm very passionate about this, but I'm also a very busy mom, 3 little kids. I know what it's like to kind of be overwhelmed by having to prepare and cook all this food. And if you are like me and it is a priority for you to serve your family and fuel your family with healthy food, then I am all about showing you how to do that in a really simple, doable way. So one of those things is bone broth, and bone broth has so many benefits. It is definitely trending. It's been trending for years, but it really is something that has been around for a very, very long time. Bone broth is definitely what I would consider an ancestral food, meaning it has been around for centuries. This is something that our ancestors consumed. It is very nutrient dense. It has a lot of benefits for the gut, and it's something that we can still incorporate very easily, even more easily. I mean, it's like beyond easy now in our modern kitchens compared to how they used to make it many years ago. Okay, so I am sure that you have heard somewhere out there in the real world on the internet that bone broth is good for you, and that is true. It is definitely a healthy option, but here on my channel I like to explain the why behind things. I want you to actually understand why something is good so that you can take it beyond just knowledge that it's good, which really doesn't tell you much, to actually understanding the nutrition benefits, even maybe a little bit of the science behind what makes it so nourishing. Because I feel that when you actually have the knowledge to back something up, when you can connect the dots and really understand what something some kind of nutrient or whatever is actually doing in your body, it makes you have a lot more intrinsic motivation to actually consume it. It makes you more just motivated and excited about including it in your diet because you actually know exactly what it's doing, and you can get a lot more excited about the benefits. So how you actually make bone broth is you take bones from really any kind of animal, and you simmer them in water with some kind of acidic medium. I use apple cider vinegar a lot of the time. White wine is also a really good one you can use. And then you usually add in vegetables as well. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about the specifics of how to make it later, but that is what constitutes bone broth. You simmer it for a very long time. So essentially all or many of the nutrients that are in those vegetables, and then most importantly, the bones, will be leached out into the liquid, and then you get rid of all of the leftover, bones and carcass, and you save that liquid, and that is your bone broth. So that broth, after it's been long simmered with those bones and vegetables, is going to be very high in calcium. It's a good source of magnesium, also phosphorus, potassium, and zinc. But probably one of the biggest sources of all of the claims that you hear about how amazing bone broth is really comes down to the amino acids that are in there. So the amino acids are going to be released from those bones, and bone broth ends up being a really rich source of amino acids. And amino acids, if you don't know, are essentially like tiny broken down bits of protein. They're actually the building blocks of protein. Now, bone broth is rich in many amino acids, but some of the most key ones I would say are glutamine, proline, and glycine.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a quick second to tell you about my nutrition and intuitive eating program, Mindful Eating Made Simple. This program is all of my knowledge, education, tips, expertise, experience, all in one place, where I teach you everything you need to know about not just nutrition, but also how to eat in a way that is healthy and balanced for the lifelong. I am a firm believer that you need to be equipped both with robust nutrition knowledge that makes sense, that can be applied to your daily life, but also understanding how to eat intuitively, because I believe that that is the only way to enjoy eating, but not go overboard and be able to maintain health and vitality through your lifetime. So if you are just done with being on a cycle of dieting and trying this diet and that diet and failing and trying again and all of that nonsense, or maybe you're just trying to eat healthy, but you find nutrition confusing or you find it stressful and you feel like you kind of end up turning it into a diet in itself and you just can't do it in a way that is relaxed and sustainable and balanced, then this program is for you. I will personally be here to hold your hand and walk you through as you build on this new knowledge and make these changes. My mission is to help women feel confident with healthy eating, but without the complex. And that is exactly what I do in this program. So I will leave a link down below if you are ready to join me inside the program. And maybe you're still on the fence. And if that's the case, I would highly recommend taking my free mindful eating mindset masterclass, where you are going to start to learn how to break down that diet mentality, how to eat healthy for the long term in a way that's balanced and sustainable, and also avoid some of the most common mistakes people make when it comes to healthy eating. If this sounds like something you are needing in your life, I so hope to see you inside the program. I want to help you make the changes that are actually going to give you your freedom back, give you your life back, and allow you to eat in a way that has both enjoyment but nourishment at the same time. Now, you've probably heard that bone broth is good for your gut. So one of the reasons it's good for your gut is because of specifically those amino acids. So the cells on the lining of your intestines are like a tube that go all throughout your body. They're incredibly long. And this lining is very important because not only is that lining where all of the absorption of nutrients takes place from inside of the gut to your bloodstream so that it can actually enter your body, but it also is going to keep out things that are not supposed to be absorbed into your body. So this gut lining is like a first line defense against anything that we don't really want, whether it's pathogens, whether it's like bits of food that are not fully digested. We want to make sure that our gut lining is very tight, very secure. And another thing about your gut lining, the cells in your intestines are cells that turn over very quickly, meaning they have a short life, they die quickly, and are replaced rapidly. So you have a rapid turnover of these cells in your gut lining. So for example, to try and help you make like a real life connection. So if you've ever known someone who's gone through chemotherapy, you know that they lose their hair and then they often have a ton of GI distress. Like the chemotherapy makes them incredibly nauseous. That is because chemotherapy attacks fast cells that turn over very, very rapidly, which is exactly what cancer is. So it's also going to attack your hair, which also has cells that turn over very quickly, and then also your gut. So that is why you end up having all this nausea and GI distress, and it makes you feel really sick. So because of that fast turnover, in order to, replace those cells in your gut lining rapidly, like we're supposed to be doing as the older ones are dying off, you actually need a lot of those amino acids, specifically the glycine, proline, and glutamine, to rebuild all the proteins you need in those cells. So you need to have a lot of these amino acids available in order to keep up with the demand of these cells that are turning over so quickly. So if you're consuming bone broth, there's lots of sources of amino acids out there, but bone broth is an excellent source of them. So if you're consuming this all of the time, you are naturally from food supplementing this, reservoir or this need for amino acids that your body has in order to complete that successful turnover and keep that gut lining healthy and nice and secure. Another reason that bone broth supports your gut health is because of the presence of collagen. Collagen is going to be found in the bones and the connective tissue of whatever, carcass that you're adding to simmer to make your bone broth. And it's going to, just like the minerals, it's going to get leached out into that liquid. And then when you drink it, you're consuming that collagen. So collagen actually helps to seal that gut lining, keep it super secure. So your gut, like the cells in your intestinal tract in between them, are called tight junctions. And we want those to be exactly what they're called, tight, because we want that barrier to be very secure. We don't want pathogens or not fully digested food or anything else getting in between those cells, because this is where we actually permeate, where all of the nutrients are flowing through, and it's supposed to be like a fortress down there. But
you know, your that lining can be damaged by a lot of different things, and if it's not like completely secure, it's going to cause gut issues. So if you're consuming, just like the amino acids, if you're consuming a lot of the collagen that's going to help seal and secure that gut lining, it's going to make you have a healthier gut and therefore less GI distress or GI issues that would come from an unsecure or not fully developed, tightly gut lining. And then, as you probably know, collagen is not just, you know, used in your gut lining. It also can be really great to support your joints, also your skin and your hair and your nails. It kind of depends on the type of the collagen that it is, but in general, collagen is going to help support all of those things. And then one other thing I wanted to point out about bone broth that I feel like isn't talked about quite as much is specifically that amino acid glutamine that it is very rich in. Glutamine is used in the production of glutathione. And glutathione is a very powerful antioxidant used in our body to detoxify. So you know, or maybe you don't know, our liver and a little bit of our kidneys, but maybe or mostly our liver is what's responsible for detoxing substances that we take in, whether it's from food or the air that we breathe, or maybe products that we're using around our house that are toxic to our systems. Your liver is responsible for grabbing those, like repackaging them in a way that's safe and not going to harm us, and then excreting them. And glutathione, that antioxidant, plays a huge role in this process. So again, if you're consuming bone broth on a regular basis, you are bringing in that like a rich source of that glutamine amino acid, which is going to help ensure that you are having adequate levels of glutathione, which helps you have adequate detoxification of your body. And then one last thing I wanted to mention, I obviously talked about how it's mineral rich, but it also is a very good source of protein. Again, because all of the simmering that's happening with the bones and the cartilage and the connective tissue, it ends up making a pretty protein rich broth. You can guess that there's going to be like about about 10 grams per 1 cup of bone broth. You know, it'll depend a little bit on like how much water you're adding and how many bones you're using. But that's like a good rule of thumb to kind of go by. So this is a great way to add additional protein to dishes that you're making. You can sub the water for bone broth, or you can just drink it as a protein rich beverage. You can like basically use it as a way to naturally supplement protein in your diet, or just increase the protein amount at the meals you are consuming. Okay, so that's enough talk about all of the benefits. I hope you found that helpful, but it's time to move on because I want to show you actually how to make this. So how I make my bone broth is in my Instant Pot. This is one of my like favorite appliances that I own. I use it all the time. I've done a video here on my channel about, I think, 7 different ways that I use my Instant Pot on like a very regular basis. This thing has a lot of miles on it. We love our Instant Pot. So I make my bone broth in there because it is much faster, because when you're cooking under pressure, it really decreases really the cooking time, which is really helpful when it comes to bone broth, because bone broth typically has to simmer for like 24 hours. So I don't like doing that because, one, I don't want my stove to be like on that long, but more importantly, like I don't have very much real estate on my stovetop, and we use our stovetop all day, like every day. So I don't want to give up that like real estate on my stove for 24 plus hours, you know, once or twice a week. So I like doing it in my Instant Pot so I don't have to go anywhere near the stove, and plus it makes it go really fast. So I just cooked, in my Instant Pot, I cooked up a whole chicken and I deboned it, and here is everything that is left. And I did cook the chicken in the Instant Pot. So there is some lovely, like, chicken, can you see it? I don't know, chicken juice in here. It's all like the drippings from the chicken when it cooked, because I do add a couple cups of water just when I roast a chicken in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to, let me move you guys so you can see me. Okay, so here's my Instant Pot. So what you do is you just add all of the bones to the pot. And this, obviously, this chicken has been cooked. You can also buy bones, like one of the best ways to eat meat is by cooking on the bone, because it ends up being a lot more nutrient dense. And a lot of times it's more economical because you're not paying them to chop it up before it gets to you. But you can also buy bones like from farmers for pretty cheap. If you want to go that route, chicken feet are also really good to make bone broth with because they're very collagen rich. But you are probably going to want to, if they're just like raw bones that haven't been cooked, you do probably want to roast them beforehand. I never really do that. I just cook with the bones that I like from the meat that we use. You can totally Google like probably exactly how you should roast them, but you definitely want to roast them beforehand. Okay, so everything is in here. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add in water. You basically just want to add water until it just covers the bones. That's a good way to have a good like, you know, bone to water ratio. Another thing you can do is like a whole chicken carcass for me, by my standards, is plenty to make a batch of bone broth. But if you're only having like maybe little bones here and there from maybe you like cook a steak and then you have like pork chops or like with the bone in or something like that, chicken thighs with the bone in, you can just save the bones, pop them in your freezer, and then you can literally just dump them in here like frozen, and you can collect them that way. And then when you have enough to like fill half the pot, go ahead and make some. Okay, so I filled up my pot. You can see the water in there, just to the top of the bones that are in there. And then you need to add an acidic medium. So the acid is what's actually going to help like draw out and leach all of the minerals and the amino acids and the collagen and whatever else from the bones and the tissue and the skin and the cartilage, from the carcass, from the bones, into that liquid. So I am just using apple cider vinegar. This is typically what I use. This one's from Azure. And you're gonna do about 2 tablespoons. So we're just gonna pour that in. I'm eyeballing. That should be good. Okay, and then the final thing that you're gonna wanna add in is like veggies and herbs. This is technically optional, but it will provide more nutrition or really nutrients to the bone broth, but it also adds so much depth of flavor. So here is my tip for you. Throughout the week when you are, you know, cooking and you're chopping up vegetables, if you're using, you know, onions or garlic or celery, those like kind of like really good like base vegetables that you're adding to dishes, go ahead and save all of like the odd bits and ends and scraps and onion skins and throw them in your freezer. So sometimes I have like a huge stock of these. A lot of the times we end up tossing them to our chickens because sometimes I just forget to save them. But in here I've got some frozen like bits of onion. There's some celery in here. You can smell it. It smells delicious. It smells like soup base. So I'm gonna go ahead and just dump this in. If you have herbs, I mean, they can be fresh herbs, but you can also make use of like wilted, you know, if you've got like some wilted parsley in the fridge that's like not looking so hot and you don't wanna cook with it, you can either stick it in your freezer or just, if you're ready to make bone broth, go ahead and toss it in. But this is going to add so much more flavor. And then again, it's also going to add nutrients because those vegetables contain nutrients. So for example, even the onion skins, I feel like a lot of times people think that this is just like trash, but this is just like, this outer skin is onion, but it's just been dried. So like if you've ever grown onions, you know that when you pull them out, they're like that like greenish or purplish color, depending on the color of the onion. And you have to lay them outside for a couple of days to like harden the outer layer. So this is just like the very outer layer of the regular onion that's just like completely dried into this like skin. But there's still nutrition in there. So go ahead and throw all that in. You can add spices too. I usually just add salt and pepper like afterwards because that's just how I do it. But that's all you do. So you just dump everything in. We've got our bones, we've got our water, we've got our acidic medium, which is apple cider vinegar. You can also do a cup of white wine. I do that sometimes and it's delicious. And then I've added in my veggie scraps. Okay, so now we're actually gonna go ahead and cook this bone broth. So I've got my lid on. It smells so good already. You wanna make sure that you are turning this to seal. And then what I do is I set it for 1 hour and 20 minutes and let it go through the full cycle. And then when it's done, I actually repeat it and do it again. I read this or heard this somewhere online a long time ago and I've just done it ever since. So the thing is, when you only do that first cycle, it doesn't quite leach like everything out of the bones, or like at least most of it out of the bones, because when you do that, and I've tried it, you don't get what's called like the gel on the bone broth. So when you take the bone broth out and you put it in the fridge and it's cooled down, you'll notice that it gets like kind of, it's not like full-blown Jell-O, but it will get like viscous. It will have that wiggle to it. It just gets a little bit thicker, and that is all that like gelatin and the collagen in there creating that texture to it. So if you only do it once through, you don't really get that gel, which means you don't have like you're not getting as much out of those bones as you could. But when you do it that second time through, for whatever reason, that does it, and it gives you that nice gel. So I'm gonna go ahead and set it on pressure cook high for an hour and 20 minutes. And again, my vent thing is sealed, so no steam is gonna be escaping because we want all that pressure to build. So I'm gonna let this run through, and then when it's done, I'm gonna run it through again, and then we will come back so we can see our delicious liquid gold bone broth that we made. All right, you guys, I am back. It is much later in the day now, and my bone broth is all done simmering. So I'm going to take it out. I'm going to strain out all of the excess bones and skin and whatever else. And then we will be ready to store it. My Instant Pot has just been keeping it warm for me. And I finally have the chance now to deal with it. So let's do that. Okay, so everything is in here. It's pretty heavy. The steam has totally naturally released on its own. So when I open this up, nothing comes out. So what I do is I just grab a big bowl and a strainer. And I'm just going to strain out all of the little bits and pieces and things that we don't want in our finished bone broth. And then we'll just get rid of, you know, we don't need all of the stuff that's left over. Okay, take out the strainer. Would you just look at this rich golden brown color? Now that is some nutrient dense liquid gold right there. Okay, so our bone broth is all done. Super easy and a very hands-off process. But now we have to actually store it. So you could obviously use it right now. You could make soup or stew or whatever you want with all of this broth. But anything that you're not gonna use right away, you obviously wanna store. So you can put it in the fridge. It'll keep for about a week. I usually just put it into jars, some kind of container like that, and it will be fine in there for a week. But I typically like to freeze bone broth because this makes a lot of bone broth, and I won't necessarily use it all up in a week, and I don't want it to go bad because again, this stuff is like liquid gold. So what I'll do is usually freeze it. So I grabbed one already out of the freezer so I could show you guys. So I usually will freeze it in big jars like this. You can obviously buy mason jars, but this is actually like a spaghetti sauce jar. We get these big jars of spaghetti sauce from Costco, and we always save these jars because I mean they're good for lots of stuff. But so that's a little tip for you. Always save like the big jars, you know, like you don't necessarily have to, you probably don't want to necessarily use this for canning maybe, but for storing something in the freezer it's totally fine. So this is often what I'll do. However, you guys, I just discovered these and I'm so excited because I feel like they're the best invention ever. These are giant 1 cup portion ice cube trays, which is amazing for bone broth. So I'm super excited about these. I will link them down below for you. So I'm going to freeze up a bunch of these, and then if you need bone broth, you can just pop them out of the freezer and they're already portioned into 1 cup, so you know exactly how much you have. So if you want to, you know, maybe I mean, obviously if you're cooking soup, you can pop out a few and there you go, toss them in the soup or the stew. You can cook like rice, you can sub out the water and you can use a cup of bone broth. You can just heat it, and you can heat it in the microwave if you want, or heat it over the stovetop. If you're heating it or you're throwing it in the Instant Pot with other things, you could probably just heat it just a little bit and throw it mostly in frozen, it would be fine. But there's so many things that you can swap out like water for in cooking and use bone broth instead. So it's not just like soups or stews, which obviously you can use it for that. But I think people kind of get stuck on that. It's like, well, how much soup am I gonna eat if I make all this bone broth? Especially in the summer, you don't really want to be making a lot of soup. So anyway, that's just this is a little tip for you guys. Again, I'm gonna link these down below, but I'm super excited about this find. Guys, so that is how you make homemade bone broth at home the easy way. It really is such a simple process and something that you can totally get in just kind of like a cycle of doing. Save the bones, freeze them if need be until you have as many as you need. Every time you cut up onions or carrots or celery or garlic, any of those good like soup-based type ingredients, go ahead and throw the scraps that you would have just thrown away or potentially composted into the freezer so that you'll have them ready for the next time you make broth. And then when it's time, go ahead, throw everything in. It's very, very easy, especially if you have an Instant Pot. I'm a huge fan of the Instant Pot. I think it's so worth the investment, and it really is a very affordable kitchen appliance, especially for the amount of miles that I have put on mine. But that is how you make it. That is how you can easily store it. Again, I'll link those big giant ice cubes down for you, or ice cube trays down for you guys below. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it helpful. If you did learn something new from this video, I would absolutely love if you would share it with those that you know so that they can also learn not only how to make bone broth, but why it's actually so impactful and all of the kind of mechanisms of action behind all of the benefits that you hear about all the time. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have yet to subscribe, I would absolutely love for you to join my little community here on YouTube. And as always, please comment down below and let me know what type of videos that you would like to see next from me. I love your feedback. I find it so helpful and so valuable to me because I obviously want to make videos that you guys want to watch. But that is all I have for this one, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Hi. Hi.
Say hi.
Hi. You're so cute. Oh, you guys. Thank you. Love you.